Afternoon. My name is Dean Wilson, and I currently serve as the chair of the City of Erie Building Code Board of Appeals. Therefore, I call this meeting of the Board of Appeals to order. Please note that a contemporaneous transcript of this hearing is being created by a stenographer. Therefore, during this hearing, each person from the audience who speaks should come to the microphone at the lectern in the front of this chamber and should begin by giving his or her name, followed by the name of the organization he or she represents. Secretary to the Board, Christy Williams, will now call the roll of members to determine those members present and whether or not we have a quorum.
Doug Armstrong. Here. Dean Wilson.
Here.
Steve Herbstritt.
Here.
Matthew Rose. Here. Dave Steele.
Here.
David Woods.
Here.
TJ Sandell. Here. Matt Hedenko.
Here.
And we have a quorum. Thank you, Christy. At this time, I gratefully acknowledge the presence of Jason A. Check, Esquire, the city solicitor of the City of Erie, Pennsylvania, and ask him if he has any comments he wishes to make.
No specific comments. My understanding is that we had two things on the agenda. The first one was asked to be moved to the next hearing date. I believe that has been granted. So we only have one thing that we are reviewing today, and that is the suspension license appeal by Anthony Harper. And I know that Anthony Harper is present and that he is represented by attorney John Meisner, who is also present.
Very good. Thank you. So our first petition today is from Anthony Harper regarding a suspension of trades license. Members of the City of Erie Building Code Board of Appeals have previously been supplied with the following documents. First, an agenda for today's hearing. Second, Uniform Construction Code Appeals Board petition and attachments as follows. First, a letter dated August 19, 2021 to Mr. Harper from Andy Zimmerman, Code Enforcement Manager of the City of Erie, Pennsylvania. Second, a letter dated September 2nd, 2021 to Mr. Harper from Andy Zimmerman, Code Enforcement Manager for the City of Erie, Pennsylvania. Third, a letter dated September 8, 2021 from Mr. Harper to Andy Zimmerman, Code Enforcement Manager for the City of Erie, Pennsylvania. Next, a letter dated November 12, 2024 to Mr. Harper from Christy Williams, Licensing Coordinator for the City of Erie, Pennsylvania. Next, a letter dated January 8, 2025 to Mr. Harper from Christy Williams, Licensing Coordinator for the City of Erie, Pennsylvania. Next, an email dated February 12, 2026 to Christy Williams and Stephen Yurkowitz from Jake Binney. Next, a letter dated February 16, 2026 to Mr. Harper from Christy Williams, Licensing Coordinator for the City of Erie, Pennsylvania. Next, an email dated February 17, 2026 to Todd Dietrich, Brent Sessler, and Bill Paniski from Christy Williams, forwarding an email dated February 13, 2026 with photographs from Jake Binney to Christy Williams. Next, a letter dated February 25, 2026 to Mr. Harper from Christy Williams, Licensing Coordinator for the City of Erie, Pennsylvania. Next, an email dated April 7, 2026 to Christy Williams from Stephen Yurkowitz, forwarding an email dated March 31, 2026 to Stephen Yurkowitz from Sam Santana. Next, an undated letter to Mr. Harper referencing action taken by the Trades Licensing Board on April 7, 2026 from Stephen Yurkowitz, Bureau Chief of the Bureau of Building Standards and Safety for the City of Erie, Pennsylvania. Next, a letter dated May 22, 2026 to Mr. Harper from Christy Williams, Licensing Coordinator for the City of Erie, Pennsylvania. And finally, an undated letter to Mr. Harper referencing action taken by the Penelec Meter Department from Steve Yurkowitz, Bureau Chief of the Bureau of Building Standards and Safety for the City of Erie, Pennsylvania. This completes the listing of documents previously supplied to the members of the Building Code Board of Appeals. During the presentation as part of the hearing which follows this introduction, the City of Erie Building Code Board of Appeals will receive presentations or comments from relevant parties following this order of presentation. First, the board will hear any commentary from the representatives of the petitioner presenting this petition. Next, the board will hear any commentary from representatives of the City of Erie Board of Trades Licensing and/or any commentary from representatives of the City of Erie Bureau of Building Standards and Safety. Next, the board will finally hear any commentary from representatives of the general public attending this hearing. Following these presentations or commentary, the members of the City of Erie Building Code Board of Appeals will then entertain questions directed to any of those who've given presentations or offered commentary. Following these questions and answers, the chair of the Building Code Board of Appeals will then entertain a motion from a member of the board to either grant or deny the petition, followed by the chair entertaining a second to that motion. Next, the Building Code Board of Appeals will then discuss and deliberate on that motion. Next, the Building Code Board of Appeals will vote on that motion and report the results of that vote. Finally, it is very important that all parties note that any action taken by the City of Erie Building Code Board of Appeals on this petition applies solely and specifically to the details and circumstances presented by this petition. Any action taken by the board cannot be interpreted to apply to any other matter in the City of Erie. The action of the board remains exclusive to this petition and this petition only. At this time, the board respectively invites representatives of the petitioner to offer any commentary to the board in support of the position.
Good afternoon. My name is John Meisner. I'm from the Meisner Law Firm at 311 West 6th Street, and this is the first time I've had an opportunity to ever appear before the City of Erie Building Code Board of Appeals. I would start by saying that we are here today with respect to an appeal of a letter that's undated, which refers to a decision by the Trade Licensing Board of April 7th, 2026, relating to Mr. Harper. Moments before coming to the podium, I was provided a packet of materials that I understand has been presented to each of you as members, and I would respectfully object to any document that does not relate directly to the suspension issue before you today, dealing specifically with Section 333.16, small c, 3D. I believe that the only thing that should be considered are those documents that are directly relevant to the appeal that we filed on behalf of Mr. Harper, that is dated it appears to be undated, but it is the very first 2 pages of the packet of materials. Mr. Harper, a master electrician, is appealing his 4-month suspension of his professional license by the Trade Licensing Board on April 7, 2026. According to the written notification Mr. Harper received, he was suspended because an apprentice whom he was supervising was, open quote, not properly employed by your company, close quote, and therefore, open quote, proper supervision was not possible, close quote. Mr. Harper is appealing this suspension because he is being punished for not employing the person he supervises, despite no requirement anywhere, including the City of Erie ordinances, that he is permitted to only supervise employees. It is well established under Pennsylvania law that, and I quote, "An ordinance is unconstitutionally vague when it fails to provide a reasonable opportunity to a person of ordinary intelligence to know what conduct is prohibited under the law." That case is Commonwealth versus Ebach, 783 Atlantic 2nd, page 846, found by the Commonwealth Court in 2001. In other words, if the government wants to punish people for certain conduct, it has to first make sure that the law, in this case the ordinance, provides a reasonable opportunity to a person of ordinary intelligence to know what conduct is prohibited under the law. Simply put, the ordinance must tell the citizen what is prohibited. Here, the licensing board wants to punish Mr. Harper for supervising someone who is not his employee. But nothing in the city ordinances relating to master electricians or supervision of apprentices puts anyone on notice that you have to employ an apprentice to legally supervise them. Again, nothing in the city ordinances states that you have to employ an apprentice to legally supervise them. Article 333, the city's ordinances governing contractor licensing, I have here with me today, uses the word supervision 11 times. 11 times. Yet not once, not one time is it defined anywhere in the code when it is used to plainly indicate that someone other than an employee can be supervised. For example, section 333.01 talks about the supervision of subcontractors. And by the very definition of subcontractor, a subcontractor is not an employee of the license holder. I repeat, your ordinance, when it refers to the supervision of subcontractors, makes it clear that employee is not a requirement of proper supervision because you allow the supervision of subcontractors who by their legal definition, and I'm sure your solicitor would agree to this, is not an employee. Going further, nothing in the city ordinance sets forth the minimum requirement for what it means to, quote, properly, end of quote, supervise an apprentice, regardless of whether the apprentice is employed or not by the master contractor. Mr. Harper's understanding was that he was required to supervise the apprentice to ensure that the work was done professionally and properly, which means in compliance with the applicable code. According to the City of Erie Building Standards and Safety, the city operates under the Uniform Construction Code, commonly referred to as the UCC, and it provides a framework which is mandated by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Specifically, electrical installments must comply with the National Electric Code. Mr. Harper did so, and you don't have to take his word for it. The work which he supervised was also approved by the city's own inspector, which means by its nature, it met the requirements of the National Electric Code. Mr. Harper is obligated and wants to comply with the city's ordinance. He also wants to continue to work as a licensed mastered electrician. It is profoundly unfair, illegal, and unconstitutional to revoke his license for something which the city, in its ordinance, never required him or anyone else to do, namely, employ every apprentice whom he supervises. If the city wants to make employment a requirement of supervision, it has the ability to amend the ordinance to add that requirement. If and when the city adds that requirement, Mr. Harper will certainly follow that ordinance. However, unless and until the city does amend the ordinance, there is no basis to suspend Mr. Harper's license for failing to employ the apprentice whom he supervised. Mr. Harper is present with me today, and I am happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration of this appeal, and I would ask that you consult with your solicitor to confirm that what I have represented about the law is a true and accurate statement of the law, namely, that an ordinance is unconstitutionally vague when it fails to provide a reasonable opportunity to a person of ordinary intelligence to know what conduct is prohibited under the law. The ordinance in question does not, in any way, shape, or form, says that the only person that you can supervise is an employee. If that is the city's intent, and it wants to constitutionally enforce its ordinance, it must amend it to state so clearly that everybody who wants to conduct business here in the city of Erie knows in advance what is required of he or she. Thank you, and I would be happy to address any questions or concerns that you have.
Okay, thank you. We'll take questions after we hear from a representative of the either the licensing board or the City Bureau of Standards. Is there someone to represent the licensing board or the standards?
It will be Steve Yurkowitz, representing the city, building code standards.
Steve, or Sam, why don't you, I think we have multiple people present to speak. Are you looking for one person to speak on behalf of the entire group?
However many people are here to speak, will have the opportunity to do so.
And you'll be
Yes.
able to and have them remain, and they'll be able to ask questions later. So I think, just so that it's laid out very clearly for Attorney Meisner and Mr. Harper, I think the plan for the city was to have the electrical inspector, Sam Santana, speak and give a presentation, then on the specifics of why the license was suspended, then have Jake Binney, who's currently the demolition coordinator, speak as to what he knows, and then lastly have Steve Yurkovich speak as the BCO for the city of Erie. And between the three of them, they'll be able to flesh out some of the emails that you have in your packet that are relevant to today's proceedings, and then you maybe to clarify some questions as well.
Yes, that's our intent. Yes, we're happy to hear.
Okay. My name is Sam Santana. I'm the city's electrical inspector. I do not get involved with licensing or permits, but I have been involved with this since I started with the city almost 9 years ago. I've seen Andy call Tony in, Steve call Tony in, discussing the same topics round and round. I can tell you some things that I've seen that are not on par normally with what other contractors are doing. I have had a lot of people tell me that Tony's not doing the work. These are customers. I understand this is hearsay, but these are a lot of people who are not related to each other, don't know each other. I've had them describe to me the people that's working with them. It's always the same couple names, the same couple descriptions. I personally have seen 5 people get inspections under Tony, not including Tony. I have spoke to Christy about some of them. Some of them did not have licensing at all. Some of them only had apprentice licenses. let's see here. I don't want to give the names because I know this is recorded, but I can give up the names later on in private. I don't want, to cause any legal problems later on. I've had a lot of wrong addresses called in by Tony. A lot of times it's this address, this work. I go there, it's not the right address. Sometimes it's east side apartment, it's supposed to be west side. I've met, well, I'll skip that part for now. A couple of the big things recently that have occurred, besides meeting people there who claim to be Tony's employees, but we have no proof of that, or there's no licensing for that. On February 10th, I saw Jim Prozan's van on West 10th Street. The van had a lot of plumbing vans around it. All the cars were parked in front of one house. I called to say, do we have any permits on this, because there's no sticker in the window. The girl said no. Our next protocol is to call Steve. He gets a property maintenance inspector for that area to go look at it. Unbeknownst to me, they were all parking on the opposite side of the road because of parking that day. They were actually at a house that still did not have an electrical permit, but had plumbing permits. I passed it on. Steve had property maintenance inspectors follow up. I'll let them tell you what they saw, because I don't want to, muddy the waters at all. And then what was extremely disturbing is I would say that probably at 80 to 85% of these inspections have issues with them. Some of them are very minor things that people, everybody does, and other ones are glaring red flags that somebody who is not skilled is doing some of this work. It was on, excuse me for 1 minute. It was on 5/1 of 26 that I got a disturbing phone call from Penelec, a guy named Brian Doherty. He got my voicemail. I called him back and we talked, but I have the voicemail on my phone. He had gone to 3 addresses. He did not know who the contractor was for those addresses.
Sam, if I can interrupt you. That happened, so the trade licensing hearing was April 7th. So the information,
I can
anything
skip
that
that.
happened after
Yeah,
that date would not technically be relevant for today's proceedings.
That's fine.
So I would direct you to be specific to stuff that happened before April 7th.
Okay.
Okay? So if you have, give the board specifics if you have addresses, names, or conversations you've had specifically with
Okay.
Mr. Harper.
No, I can do
to
that.
let them know about the violations that the trade that we're here for. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, so my role is to go inspect jobs where construction's taking place, electrically related. I go in, I do underground inspections, behind the wall inspections, ceiling inspections, final inspections, lots of different types of inspections depending on what's going on. As I said, I've met 5 individuals who claim to be Harper's employees and tell me that they're doing the work. I've had customers tell me they're doing the work. Starting in August of 25 until, let me rephrase that. Starting in May of 23 to August of 25, I was asked to start writing down anything that seemed odd as far as how the inspections were being called in. And I have a list here of 7 of them of where it was the wrong address or I met other people. There's a lot more than this. These are just the ones that I could actually definitively prove and remember, because I go to a lot of inspections every day. So some of it tends to blend together. These were things that I saw, and I can tell you that on some of the jobs, there's been gross negligence of some of the electric work. I've found holes in cables that were the service cable for the house being hidden behind a tire because someone didn't want to replace the cable that they ripped pulling in. That's amateur stuff. And I'm not accusing anybody of doing that. I'm just saying that that's what I saw when I was on the job. And there's a lot of stuff that's going on here that, in my opinion, is going to get somebody hurt if apprentices or unqualified people with no licensing are working on their own without supervision. I have been in the trades for 16, 17 years. I have been a foreman. I've been a journeyman. I have a master's license. I teach a school for apprentices. I've been around apprentices. They are not capable of working on their own. It is unsafe. It's going to get them hurt. It's going to get somebody else hurt. And I mean, other than that, I really don't have any other specifics about this case. Any questions?
Thank you very much.
If I just ask,
Yep.
Sam, we have in the documents supplied to the Board of Appeals, there's an email, I believe, that was sent from you to Steve Yurkovich on March 31st. There are 7 property addresses listed there. Do you have that? Are you aware of that?
I have it
email?
right here.
You list some things that are wrong with each address. Is there any significance in why you would have said what was the problem with those?
So it does happen where a secretary, somebody makes a mistake and they call in the wrong address for a permit. It does happen. With Tony, it seems to happen quite a bit. I'll get a text that says, go to, let's say, 545 West 16th. The job's at 545 West, or East 16th. And that's kind of a really big difference to be calling in. If you were at the job, how did you not know it was on the east side or west side? That happened quite a bit, and then I started recording it when I was asked to do that. I've sent Tony texts saying that the corrections I need, and Tony texts me back accidentally thinking he's texting somebody else, I assume, and it says, from the inspector, and then this is what you need to correct. I don't know who he's texting or who he's telling to go correct things, because he holds the master license with no journeyman on his staff that I'm aware of. So I don't know who could go and correct these things without having him supervise.
And Sam, could you maybe explain to the Board of Appeals the term, what do you mean by supervision? Like, what does that actually entail? What's the rules in place
No,
for
I'm-
master electricians,
okay, I'm
journey
not-
electricians? You as an electrician, though, you've
Yes.
been in the trade, you said, for 16 or 17 years.
Yeah.
What does that mean when you go to these spots?
So just to be clear, I'm not fluent on our ordinances or the licensing. Like I said in the very beginning, I don't get involved with them, so I'm not sure on the wording exactly specifically of what all of it says. But I can tell you right now, in the electrical industry, supervision is direct. It is either a journeyman with the apprentice or it is a master with the apprentice. The apprentice cannot be trusted to do anything but outside of sweeping a floor without that person there, because electricity is invisible and they don't have the skill to know when it's on and when it's not. And so in the electrical field, you do not leave apprentices alone. And supervision has always been implied to be direct. You have to be on site with them because their safety of them going home is your responsibility. It's not theirs. They don't know enough to know what is safe and what is not safe. So I understand that there could be some wording that is not precise enough or something, but I will tell you right now that every job site and every trade, the mentality is they know apprentices are not supposed to be left alone. Now, do people do it? Of course they do. It happens. But in my opinion, professionals do not, because that person does not know enough to keep themselves safe. If they did, they would pass any test that is put in front of them, they would get the license that they need, and they would move on. Because nobody wants to stay as an apprentice unless you're forced to. That's the only reason why people stay as apprentices. They cannot move to the next level. They do not have the training for it. So therefore, in my mind, to answer your question, supervision is direct. A person must be on site, giving them verbal instructions and verifying that they're following those instructions.
So when you say direct supervision, is there a delineation whether the person is an employee of the master or is a subcontractor or is like someone who's just a novice apprentice?
So subcontractors, in my mind, they are their own company, doing their own job, hired by somebody else to do that job. For example, worked on many fire alarm jobs. We don't program the fire alarm. We subcontract it out. We pull all the wire, we do all the terminations, and they come and do the startup and everything else, and they're a subcontractor. They're not my employee, of course. They're not anything like that, but that is not what I think that we're talking about here. This is, as far as a subcontractor goes, that's a separate company altogether doing work that you don't do, and that's why you're subbing out to them. If you could do the work, you would do it yourself. So I don't like the term subcontractor being used like that, because it is not implying what the actual word means. I don't know if I answered your question or.
So, and before April 7th of this year, when you were responding to doing inspections on permits that are under Mr. Harper's name, have you been on sites where the apprentice was there by themselves being unsupervised?
I can honestly say I've never seen an apprentice on site doing electrical work. If they're ever on site when I show up, it seems to be nobody wants to be there when I'm doing the inspection. At least that's the vibe I'm getting, because they're never there. I have shown up on jobs and found Jim Prozan and other people there. They're sweeping floor, they're cleaning up material. They're not doing anything that I could say at that point that they were not supervised to do.
And just more specifically, is Jim Prozan is an apprentice, correct?
I believe he has an apprentice license, yes.
Okay. And he was there by himself. You're saying he wasn't doing electrical work specifically, but,
Yep, I've seen him there 2 or 3 times over the course of 9 years, sweeping floors, gathering up material, not doing electrical work. Yeah, it would have been, if I would have caught him doing work, it would have been a different story. I would have had to turn it into Christie, as I'm obligated to do, and let her take care of it from there. But I've seen the van, I've seen him out and about, but when I showed up on an actual job to inspect for Harper, I did not see him doing any electrical work.
was Mr. Harper present?
No.
Has he ever been present for any of these final inspections you did?
I've done a few inspections where Tony was present. Most of them, though, I would say the majority of 90% or greater, he has not. He works for the city, as probably some of you are aware. In these inspections, I have to run a very tight schedule. I can't just meet on lunch all the time. So,
Okay,
no, I haven't.
okay. I don't have any further questions. so.
Dean,
Thank,
I have a question on this. We have a letter here showing 7 things that you've encountered. Is that 7 out of 10 permits this year? Is that 7 out of 100? Give us a level of magnitude of what we're looking at.
So, I've been in court enough to know it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. I picked out 7 that I have either in text message or that it's written on the permit or something like that I could actually prove. But I can tell you right now that the number of meeting individuals there who claim to be employees of Harper, the addresses that were wrong, the text messages coming to me when they were meant to go to somebody else, far exceeds this number. I mean, far exceeds this number. I would say, I don't want to take a guess at it, but this is just a handful of things that I was asked to put together, but there's more.
okay. Thank you very much.
Anything else?
Who-
Stay
who is
present.
next to-
Stay present in case the board has questions.
All right.
Who's next?
Hello, my name is Jake Binney. I work for the City of Erie. I am the demolition coordinator / code enforcement officer, but basically what that means is I deal with all of the blighted properties in the City of Erie. Here, I'm going to talk about three different addresses and dates, and I'm simply going to tell you what I observed, and after I observed it, I reported it to Lindsay, our licensing coordinator, and my supervisor, Steve Yurkowitz. Christy, do you,
Christie.
what's that?
Correction, Christie.
Christie?
Said Lindsay.
Oh, I apologize. Christy?
No.
I correct that. Christy is our licensing coordinator. So on May 21st of 2025, I was called to do a pre-blight rescind inspection. These are really common. People buy houses, they begin working on them. They aren't exactly sure what all needs to be corrected, what permits need to be obtained. So I come as a representative of the city to do a walkthrough, a lens of code enforcement as far as permitting is concerned. During that inspection, I asked the owner who was rehabbing the property who the electrician was, and he had stated that his electrician was Jim Prozan. And at the time, there was a Tony Harper permit pulled for a service reactivation, and that permit was closed out and finalized by Sam for the service panel itself. But the house had been rewired. At the result of this situation, it was undetermined who rewired the house. The homeowner was required to have another contractor come in, evaluate the rewire portion, get a permit, get it inspected by Sam, and have it finalized and closed out. And that property was found compliant and did come off of the blighted properties list that did make rescission. The next instance I have here is, you'll see some photos attached. This is 545 West 16th Street. This was July 15th of 2025. I was called by the owner. The owner was attempting to sell the property, and the blight designation came up on the title search. we record them, the redevelopment authority records them as a lien on the title of the property so that it is known to buyers that the property was declared blighted by the city's Blighted Property Review Committee at one point. So this owner was attempting to sell the property and come across the blight designation and asked me to come do a walkthrough of the property. When I did the walkthrough, I had identified some illegal electrical work that was done. It was quite hazardous. There was a lot of open splices. It appeared to me that the wiring in this basement had been cut and scrapped from the panel to the floor, and somebody had come in and just reconnected the wiring to supply lighting to the house and other electrical services. When I asked the homeowner who the electrician was, he said, Jim, excuse me, he said Jim Electrician. There was a bit of a language barrier between myself and the owner, and then he immediately pulled his phone out, showed me a contact in his phone that was named Jim Electrician with the phone number, and I had asked him, I said, do you mind if I take photographs of your conversations? And he said no. So I explained to the owner, I said, listen, I said, you got to get a licensed contractor in here to get this fixed, get a permit, make this all correct. It was then a little while later that Harper pulled a permit, everything was fixed, and it did pass inspection, and Sam finaled it on August 18th of 2025. The last situation that I have here was February 11th of this year, 2026. It was 1316 Buffalo Road. I attended, this inspection was called an escrow draw inspection because the redevelopment authority and the land bank do developer agreements on blighted properties that they have taken possession of. So they had a developer who was in an agreement to rehab the structure, and all the permitting ordinances still apply. So I was there to see where they were at in the process, what inspections were done, what permits were open. And when I entered the basement, I was with multiple people. It was myself, the director of the redevelopment authority, the Erie Land Bank board member, the building inspector, and the homeowner that was doing the rehab. I had seen all the brand new wiring run, and I had asked the homeowner and the people that were doing the rehab who was the electrician. And they said, Dave, he was the guy that just left before you got here. And I said, okay, I did see a car pull out as I was walking down the sidewalk approaching the property. And at that time, there was an open Tony Harper permit for a service panel and a full rewire of the house. I then came back to the office. Well, no, it was then in that moment that the Erie Land Bank board member and the guy doing the rehab immediately said, it's Tony Harper. The permit should be under Tony Harper. And I was like, oh, okay. So then I came back. I went to Christy. I said, Christy, do you know anybody by the name of Dave or David that works under Tony Harper? She did some research, found a David King who was an apprentice that apparently was at the house doing the work. I did not see the work, but the homeowner performing the rehab said that his electrician was David, and then immediately rebutted and said, no, it's Tony Harper is who pulled the permit. Those are 3 situations with dates and addresses of specific information that I have documented. All I can do is tell you what I witnessed and what I observed. Other than that, I don't have anything else to say.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, Jacob, if you could just clarify, we have an email in the record that was noted at that, or email you sent on February 13th of this year to Christy, that Christy then forwarded to Derek and some other people that were then forwarded to the Trade Licensing Board meeting. Did you author that email on February 13th? Yes,
and that, I believe that I sent that email to Christy on the 12th, and then that would have been when she forwarded to you guys. And when I was reviewing this email, I had not, I don't know where the email before this is, but I had not notated the address. I had simply explained a situation that I had encountered during an inspection. But that was the address and reference for that email. The email starts yesterday. I attended at 2:30 PM an escrow draw inspection. That was the 216 Buffalo Road.
And there's also an email about 464 West 10th Street and
Yep.
545 West 16th Street. Is
That is correct, yep.
And those are the two properties, you talked about both of those properties today.
Correct, yep, those are the first two properties I mentioned.
And then just to clarify, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pictures included in the packet. Did you take all of those pictures?
I took all of those pictures, and those pictures were taken at 545 West 16th on July 15th, 2025.
Okay, does that include the pictures of the cell phone?
That is
text
correct.
messages?
All of the photos attached were from 545 West 16th. That was where work was done, and then a permit was pulled.
Okay, I don't have any other questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Steve Yerkowitz. I'm a BCO, Bureau Chief of Building Standards and Safety for the City of Erie, Pennsylvania. Okay. Sorry, my notes got a little messed up here. Okay. On February 10th, I received a call from Sam Santana that he witnessed Jim Prozan's van being parked in the 600 block of West 10th Street. At that time, I called Michael Hoover Buzzard, who's actually sitting in the office right in the chambers right now, to go over there and take a look and see what he saw. He went over there and he got some photographs of Jim Prozan going into the building, 633 West 10th Street. He got photographs of Jim standing by his van. Mike left the scene around 12-ish, took his city vehicle back to where he parks his home vehicle, grabbed his home vehicle, went back over and sat there a little bit longer, and received, he got more photographs of Jim Prozan going into the property. He's got a photograph of him carrying a tool bag into the property. So the very next day I asked Kelly Neville, permit tech, she's also sitting in the audience, to let me know if a permit comes in from Tony Harper. Around 7:30ish, she walked down to the mailbox, and there was a permit application in for Tony Harper. Somewhere between 8:30, she issued the permit. Because the permit was issued, I called Mike Buzzard, because I knew he was in the field again, and asked him to go to the property to see what he saw. Mike went to the property, went into where the service was done, and he has photographs of the service totally being installed. That right there is proof that Tony did the work prior to having a permit. You cannot do any work until a permit's been issued. The permit wasn't issued, and there's no possible way an entire service could have been put in an hour. I've also got a statement, well, not a statement, but I talked to Chandra. He's the owner of a store up on where the old Nunzies was. He came in to pay a permit on 2/25 of 26, and prior to that, he had a phone conversation with me saying that Ernie started the job and Jim Prozan was called to come in and finish it. I asked him if when Mr. Harper came in and pulled a permit. I asked him when Jim Prozan was on this job site, was Tony Harper on the job site? He said no. He said Tony was not on the job site when Jim was working. He would come to the job site after Jim was done working and make sure everything is done correctly. That being said, that's what I've got right now.
Any questions from anyone?
Just, Steve, if you could just clarify, you talked about, in your presentation, you talked about Mr. Harper and you talked about Mr. Prozan.
Right.
What is the relevance of Mr. Prozan's
Well,
activities as an electrician at these particular properties?
Mr. Prozan, we had, at the Building Code Board of Appeals, Mr. Prozan said that he was an employee of Mr. Harper's. Mr. Harper agreed he was an employee. The board asked him how he gets paid, and he said by cash. The board also asked him, well, that, if you're paying him by cash, are you taking tax out? No. They also asked him, is he a subcontractor? Well, no, he's my employee. Well, then how are you doing this? And they didn't have a good answer for that.
Yeah, but also, is Mr. Prozan a master electrician?
Mr. Prozan is a master electrician.
Wait,
No,
wait.
Mr. Prozan is an apprentice
Oh,
electrician. I
and what does
apologize.
that mean for purposes
Apprentice
of
electrician
oversight?
must have a journeyman or a master on site. They cannot be working alone. There's proof that Mr. Prozan was working alone, without Mr. Harper or a journeyman on site.
And why is that an issue?
Well, as Sam Santana said earlier, it's an issue because of safety.
Yeah, I just want to have you clarify for us again that it is the industry standard in all trades, no
It-
matter what the trade is, that an apprentice must be under the direct supervision of a master licensed contractor at all times, and that the master contractor must be physically present when the apprentice is doing the work. Is that correct?
That is the industry standard, yes,
Okay.
yes.
So that any time an apprentice is working by himself or herself, they are violating the intention of the requirement for supervision.
Yes, sir, they
The
are.
supervision is intended by the code to be direct supervision.
Right,
Yeah.
that is correct.
And while I'm speaking, I would also like to simply clarify that it is the National Electrical Code, not the National Electric Code. There is a National Electric Code that applies to the installation of power wiring by utility companies. It's an entirely different document.
Correct.
Any other questions? Is there anyone else to address from the Bureau of Standards? Any questions from board members for anyone who's spoken?
So if there's I think it would be proper for Mr. Yurkowicz.
Well, Mr. Armstrong had a question, he raised his hand.
What, for those that well, just hold on. I think, because Attorney Meisner, he's been patient, so he's had 3 people come up. I think he probably either wants to do a rebuttal presentation, perhaps, or to be able to offer, I don't know if he wants Mr. Harper to talk or not, that's up to you. But I think it would make sense that before the board asks questions of all the parties that have presented, we get Mr. Yurkowicz sit down. Attorney Meisner could do a rebuttal presentation or have Mr. Harper say something, again, however they decide they want to do it. And then, once that's done, have the board ask questions, as you stated previously, at the last time. Is that okay?
If that's what you'd like, yep.
I think that's just
absolutely.
fair under the circumstances.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
So
Mr.
Steve, you're not
Meisner
excused.
Or Mr. Harper?
Thank you for the opportunity to respond. I appreciate that. We're here because of the conduct on April 7th. And at that time, Mr. Harper was suspended, and the reason was because he was having an apprentice electrician working on job sites without proper supervision because the apprentice were not properly employed by the company. That is the issue. That is the issue. Much of what you just heard has nothing to do with the issue that is the subject of this appeal. And while it may be appealing to you, due process, which is accorded to every citizen under both the federal and state constitution, requires that we deal with the issue that's on appeal. The issue on appeal is whether the city ordinance puts Mr. Harper on notice that he must employ people that he supervises. Not one witness got up here and said, Mr. Meisner was wrong about what the ordinance requires. What we're talking about and what we have appealed is whether the ordinance has put Mr. Harper on notice that he may only supervise people that he employs. The law requires that your ordinance that you seek to enforce and the one which you seek to impose a suspension put him on notice that he must employ that person. That is the issue before you. Due process also requires that he or his counsel has a right to confront those who offer testimony. And the first witness himself acknowledged that he had no knowledge of the code and did not offer any testimony on it, and nor did the second or third witnesses. They talked to you about things that are not the subject of this appeal. The document that the first gentleman, Mr. Santana, referred to had a list of 7 things that he encountered about a wrong address on many of them, 4 of them, but that doesn't have to do with whether the ordinance has put Mr. Harper on notice that he can only supervise employees. The second witness talked about, that being Mr. Benning, about 464 West 10th Street and 545 West 6th Street, and then he went and proceeded to give you hearsay. And hearsay is not proper for you to consider. And the reason why it's not proper is because neither Mr. Harper nor his counsel can confront the person whose testimony that they're talking about. Both of those events referred to hearsay. Then we had double hearsay because somebody showed you a picture of a phone that had something on it. And as your learned counsel will tell you, you can't cross-examine a phone. Mr. Harper has nothing to do with who puts what in their phone and how they identify the caller. You may not consider hearsay when it comes to judging Mr. Harper. The last witness, he literally said he did not have proof. He did not see work being done by Mr. Prozan. What he saw was him going into a building carrying an electric or some sort of bag. Again, that has nothing to do with the issue that we have filed the appeal upon. The issue is whether your ordinance, and your solicitor will tell you this, that they're attempting to suspend the license based upon the fact that he did not supervise these people because they were not his employees. Mr. Yurkowitz talked about discussions with Mr. Prozan where he thought Mr. Prozan could not establish that he was an employee. Again, discussions with Mr. Prozan is also hearsay. There is a very simple solution to this. And while nobody may get Mr. Harper's scalp today, all you need to do is, if it's your intent, if it is the intent of the city that one may only supervise their employees, simply put that in the ordinance so that people of ordinary, reasonable intelligence know that they may only supervise people who are their employees. I, again, want to renew my objection to the consideration of the testimony and of the documents that do not go to what we have appealed in our document. The petition to appeal the building code decision is Mr. Harper is appealing the decision because at all times he was appropriately supervising the apprentice work under his supervision. Contrary to his supervision letter, contrary to his suspension letter, Mr. Harper is not required to employ the apprentice electrician whom he supervises. If the issue is the quality of his work and whether or not it meets the terms of the NEC code, that is for another day, another hearing, in which he can address that issue. But the issue before you today is whether he is required to employ the people that he supervises. 11 times your ordinance refers to supervision. Not once does it say that you have to supervise only your employees. Thank you.
Mr. Meisner, I have a question for you. And I'm going to read to you from the letter that was sent to Mr. Harper by the Bureau Chief of the Building Standards and Safety. Unfortunately, this letter does not bear a date, but it references the action taken by the Trades Licensing Board on April 7th, 2026.
Can you allow me
In
to
the
find-
third, I'm sorry, sir?
Can you allow me to find it?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said, sir.
Can you allow me to find it in my packet?
Yes, I certainly can. You let me know when you found it.
Can you show me which letter you're referring to?
It's the letter from the City of Erie. It's from Stephen Yurkowicz, who's the Bureau Chief of the Building of Standards and Safety. And it's the letter to Mr. Harper that references the action taken by the Trades Licensing Board on April 7th. Do you have that letter?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I want to call your attention to the third paragraph that begins, "The city presented facts and/or testimony that you violated this ordinance on various locations and/or times by having apprentice electricians working on job sites without proper supervision, period." Then there's a next sentence that says, "Further, the apprentices were not properly employed by your company, which suggested that proper supervision under the present business structure was not possible." There are two issues in that paragraph. The first issue is the issue of having apprentice electricians working on job sites without proper supervision. And it is well known throughout all of the trades and referenced in the National Electrical Code that proper supervision of apprentices is done by direct supervision of a master electrician at all times the apprentice is performing electrical work. The intent of your appeal today is appealing the suspension of the license. There are two items in this paragraph. One is the improper or failure to supervise, and the other is the comment that supervision is normally performed because the apprentice is in the employ. Now, I understand you're making an issue about the employ, and that's all fine and good. But do you have anything to refer to this board that would dispute that apprentice electricians are working without proper supervision? That's my question for you,
Yes,
sir.
and that is, two of your witnesses referred to an industry standard. And they said that specifically the industry standard must be under direct supervision. However, that is not in your ordinance, sir. The electrical work in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania must be performed in accordance with the Uniform Code of Construction, which references the National Electrical Code, NFPA 70. And NFPA 70 makes it clear what direct supervision is. Sir, with all due respect, they refer to an industry standard that is not part of your ordinance.
Attorney Meisner, not to interrupt, but I think what he's referencing is that periodically every 3 to 4 years, the city adopts the most recent version of the UCC that's adopted by the state of Pennsylvania. And in that UCC language, I believe there's language that says we're adopting the ND, whatever the reference that you
National
just made.
Electrical Code.
So it's like a reference within a reference.
Understood.
And so the city has adopted the UCC that's been adopted by Pennsylvania. And that's a more complicated question, but in general, they have that. I think that's what he's referencing.
Any other questions for Mr. Meisner? Please, go ahead.
This may not actually be for Mr. Meisner, but I guess the question is, on one of the letters, there's a reference to a section 1502.62A1 and A2. It's towards the back of the package we were given, and it is dated August 19th, 2021. And then there's follow-on letters referencing the same element.
Okay, I think,
What is that code, what is
Well,
that reference from? Is that
I'm
UCC, NEC?
well, I'm going to actually, well, that probably references something from the UCC that's part of the city ordinance. But actually what we have is a standing objection by Attorney Meisner on documents that might be in the packet that may not be directly relevant to what the Trade Licensing Board had at their discretion
Correct.
on that. So really, I didn't have really a chance to address that, so I think I probably should address that now. So I think what I would say is that the letters, so I'm just going to start, the packet I have, the last page is a letter dated September 14th, 2021. I would say that is not relevant, okay? Per Mr. Meisner's objection. There's another letter dated September 9th of 2021. I would say also that is not relevant. There's another letter that is not on letterhead, but dated September 8th of 2021. I would also say that's not relevant for purposes of today. There's a 2-page letter not on letterhead dated September 2nd of 2021. I'd also say that for purposes of today, that's not relevant, because none of these things were brought up as the specifics that you heard from Mr. Benny, Mr. Santana, and Mr. Yurkovich at the Trade Licensing Board. And then I think also there's an undated letter. Yeah, there's an undated letter. It says, "Dear Mr. Harper, the Penelec Meter Department." That also is not relevant for today's proceedings as well. So all those I would ask the board to grant, probably I would say grant Mr. Attorney Meisner's objection for those particular documents. The rest of the documents, I believe, are either referenced appropriately or have been confirmed, like the emails, the pictures, and some of the other letters have been confirmed already. So, so what I was going to do is ask you, do you still have a question?
Yes.
Okay, so if you still have a question, and it's not based on anything I just said not to.
This was a convenient spot for me, since I don't have any code books in front of me, to ask, because the objection is based on it's doesn't have to be in the employ.
Right.
And I guess my question is does the National Electric Code or whatever that section is that an adopted code that's currently enforced by the city of Erie? I mean, if I had the UCC, I would open it up. If I had the NEC, I'd open it up. Those documents clearly say that they must be in the employ. And I guess I'm asking, is that language still exist in the code?
That part I don't know off the top of my head.
We have representatives from the Bureau here. Perhaps they can look up and see what Section 1502.62, licensing of electrical contractors and others, says.
I would renew my objection again,
Yeah.
because we're now going to things, as you've pointed out, that were not before the original board that handed down the suspension. And I believe it's a matter of due process, protected by the federal, the United States, and the state constitution. It says you can't bring things up on appeal that were not considered by the underlying board who imposed the suspension.
I'm only bringing it up because you brought up the fact that there's nothing in the code or the ordinance that says he must be employed. And I'm trying to confirm whether that's in fact true or not true.
Right, well, with all due respect, what you need to refer to is the ordinance itself.
Does the ordinance adopt the UCC? I'm not,
Yeah, so I think I think there's two things going on here. So your question was based on there's a reference to section 1502.62 in one of the letters. That letter is dated September 2nd, 2021. So that's one of the letters that I've said that Attorney Meisner's objection would be granted. However, that you still have the other question of just, you're like, in general,
in
the
rephrase.
issue of, does he have to supervise an employee or not supervise an employee is a separate question, and I think your question is that, excluding the reference to the letter,
Understood.
just in general, is it in the code? And that's where I would defer to, is it in the code or not? Because the problem is, we have the city adopting the Pennsylvania's recommendations, which then tails into. So, and that is not something I know off the top of my head.
Understood.
So I don't think that it's not a relevant question, because it is a question that has been raised as part of the appeal.
Understood.
So getting the answer to that seems appropriate.
I don't have the code in front of me, so I'm not the one that could answer that.
And that's the same with myself.
We've got people in the back of
Yeah.
the room looking into it.
Okay. So maybe we take like a 5-minute recess, or something. Or just
Are there
wait.
any other questions from the board for anyone who spoke? Go ahead, please.
This is for Mr. Harper.
Well, he hasn't spoke, sir.
Well, okay, this is for Mr. Harper's attorney.
Okay.
Explain to me how this works. I've been in construction a long time. Something as simple as digging a hole. There's coordination, cooperation, planning. So if I wanted to dig a hole, how do I do that? Do I send people there? Do I send equipment there? Do they show up at random times? I'll bring it back to the electrical questions at hand. We have electrical jobs that are happening, and there's no supervision, or supervision not to his employees. He pulls the license. How does that work?
No, I believe that what the law would say is that the person with the license must supervise to ensure that the code is complied with. And the way you decide that is you look at the end result and you see, has it met code? And you infer from that that there was sufficient and proper supervision to ensure that it was done right, and that's how it met the code. Because none of these people testified that they observed who did the work and that Mr. Harper did not in some way supervise to ensure that the work was done correctly. So going to your question about the hole, one may, as the person with the license, make sure that the equipment is there, may be there and say, here's where we're going to dig the hole, may be there when they start digging the hole, may be looking at something else and come periodically to ensure that the hole is in the right location, that the dirt is being moved to the right location, and that all the safety features are being implemented and followed. And when the hole is completely dug, that the hole meets to the qualities and the specifications of the contract, the ordinance, and other code requirements.
Okay. Let me read to you under master electrical contractor. And this is out of the city's ordinance. Under master electrical contractor, such business as an electrical contractor having final determination and the full responsibility for the manner in which the work is done, for the material used, and for the selection, supervision, and control of electricians employed on the work engaged in by said person, business, partnership, or corporation.
Yes.
So are these people his employees or they're not?
Well, again, there's not a requirement they be as employees because your code also refers to the supervision of subcontractors. There's nothing that would prohibit Mr. Harper from bringing another electrical contractor in performing the work under his supervision. So it does not require that there be an employment relationship. The criteria is what you just read, sir.
Okay.
That they must do all of those things, but there's nothing that you read that said that the person with the license must be physically there and oversee every step of the way, because quite frankly, if that was a requirement, why would you have anybody else do the work? You would just do the work yourself because you would be required, literally under the interpretation that's being urged here, to stand there and physically watch every single thing that that person is doing.
And that's what you're supposed to, that's exactly
That's what an
what you're
apprentice is supposed
be
to do.
doing. And the reason for that is, the reason that you have an apprentice is so that that apprentice can learn how to do the work and eventually become licensed as a master. That's why you have an apprentice. You don't have an apprentice to do the work for you. You have an apprentice so you can teach that person how to do the work so that person can eventually become licensed.
Understood, but your own witness, sir, said he never observed Mr. Prozan, for instance, doing anything but sweeping a floor. There's been no testimony that's been offered here that in fact the work as you have described was not done.
That's all fine and good. I want to make sure you understand what's intended. Are we done? Can we go ahead
Nope.
now? Do you guys have any
Dean.
help for us in the back?
I got another comment then.
All right, go ahead.
So Tony supervises these people. That's all he's doing is lending his supervision. However, there's a permit process. And to get the permit, somebody's got to be a master electrician. And that means he's going to supervise these people. Now, when do these people show up for work? How do they know what to do? How do they know what to install?
With all due respect, you're asking questions that there's no evidence in this record of that one way or the other. Those are all evidentiary issues for the original board making that made the original decision.
And
My question is, I'm trying to find out how this work happens, and if it's not Mr. Harper's employees, then they must be somebody else's employees.
Well, the key is whether he's properly supervising them, not whether they're employees or not, because there's no requirement in the ordinance that they be his employees. The requirement is one of supervision, sir.
Okay, and what is the definition of supervision?
Sir, it's your ordinance. I think
Okay.
the definition,
Is it okay if I interject at this point? I've only done a quick internet search, but the state of Pennsylvania and thus Erie, they adopt the ICC electrical code. According to my Google search and looking at a couple of what look like the proper websites, not Reddit or anything like that, so not Reddit. It looks like the ICC electrical code does adopt the NEC as its baseline. So I think that would be to answer like half the question.
sure.
Okay, so I'm just going to point that out. So I do think there's a proper, so again, it's a reference to the NEC through the ICC electrical code that's being adopted as part of the UCC adoption process through the city ordinance.
Understood.
Okay, so I think that exists.
Can I bring my comment full circle? So if Tony can only supervise, somebody's got to be the responsible contractor.
Well, sir, only supervisor is your term, not mine.
Okay. Well, a single license, Tony's license, can be used for Tony's business and no other business. He cannot rent his license out to any other entities. So if they're not his employees and he's not controlling the work and all he's doing is supervising, then how can his license be used?
Well, the same way it is when the code refers to using a subcontractor.
Well,
But
no.
the subcontractor would be licensed, and the subcontractor himself would be licensed.
Well-
I think the board has heard enough.
I will say that Mr. Herbstreit has had his hand up for a little
I'm-
bit.
I'm sorry.
So I would like to give him an opportunity if he still wants to ask a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something. We've said direct supervision by a master, and I just wanted to clarify that that's not, as far as my understanding, that's not totally correct. It has to be a journeyman at least,
Yes.
or a master.
Sorry, yes.
So if there were journeymen,
Right.
I just wanted to make that clarification to make sure that
You're
I
absolutely
wasn't
correct.
confused. Yeah.
Does that?
Any other comments or questions from the board?
If there aren't any journeymen present on site, there always has to be at least a journeyman, according to the ordinance.
Right, and I don't think we've heard anything that a journeyman was present on site as part of the allegations.
Well,
Or not
but
present-
a master
Or not
can,
present on the site.
Right.
Again, we're here with the record that was established before the original hearing board, and I know you can appreciate what I'm trying
Yeah.
to articulate there.
Right, I agree.
Question, comment. The photos that we saw earlier are the violation, the code violations. Can we look at those again?
Did you rule those as appropriate? I can't remember what you,
The
You can stop
pictures,
on that electrical
yeah, the
panel.
pictures are appropriate. Those were considered by the Trade Licensing Board specifically. It was only the letters dated in like 2021, 2022 that I said were specifically excluded.
Did you supervise that? I know he can't. Was that supervised work?
I don't know.
it's
and
got a
again,
screen
that
on the
would-
other side.
Okay, is he making, I guess Attorney Meisner, just to make it clear, is he making himself available for
You know,
questions
I
for the
could
board?
sit here, we could go through each and every
Well,
thing.
hold on, sir, hold on, sir.
Okay.
I'm asking Attorney Meisner a question. Just for proper circumstances, because you do have an attorney present, and he's here to do a job, and so part of that job is to give you advice, so,
Okay.
okay, I'm just,
Okay. Now, we could go through here, we could go through line by line and everything, and I could tell you about this job, about that job, and everything else. You asked if
Yeah,
that
if this
was...
works on your permit and you supervised it,
Oh, no,
That's
that
bad.
work was before my permit. So I didn't supervise that work. So whoever or did that beforehand, we cleaned it up.
then the
Quite frankly, you would need a witness that's going to testify that in fact this was his work and that what he's saying is not accurate. This isn't about guessing or speculating, it's about evidence. You're going to take a man's license away to earn a living, and it can't be done on guessing or speculating. And somebody needs to say that was his work under his supervision, and therefore he's not qualified.
I thought the board did say that.
No, they didn't, nobody offered evidence. They offered evidence of these pictures, but none of them said that that was Mr. Harper's work. They said that that's a picture that they took.
Anything else?
Yeah, Dave Steele, I guess, again, to renew my question. The appeal is based on not being under the employ, and I guess I'm trying to confirm whether that's part of the ICC, the NEC, or anything else that's the ordinance, whatever. I mean, the ordinance adopts presumably the UCC, which is adopting the ICC electric code, which is adopting the NEC. Is the employment question that is the basis of this appeal, is that outlined somewhere in one of those codes? And if we don't know that question, how can we
well, I
make a
think
determination on the
this
appeal?
is again my opinion, but Mr. Chairman Wilson explained paragraph 3. I leaned into his interpretation. The first says your apprentices are not under proper supervision, stop, period. And then the second paragraph where it says further on, they're not in your employ, therefore making supervision seem not possible. They go together, but they also are also separate statements. So for the board's consideration, this is my opinion, is that you were looking at two things. If these are permits under Mr. Harper's name, were there apprentices there doing work on his behalf? Were they supervised? Now, whether he's got them employed or he's 1099 them, okay? At that point, it's his permit, he's the master electrician, they are the apprentice electrician. Now, the further, should be under your direct employ, or they're not under your direct employee, and therefore it's impossible for you to supervise them, that's a secondary corollary. So I think you have to go with how are you going to put those together, and also that they're separate. That's my interpretation, because I think they build upon one another.
Okay, then I guess the second part of the question is does the code anywhere state that an apprentice must be supervised at all times by a journeyman or a master electrician?
Well, this is where I believe, I'll let Mr. Sandell, you're a master electrician, right?
I'm a master plumber.
Plumber, but you can maybe speak on this then.
It's my understanding that the UCC, and I don't know which section, but the city UCC, I don't know if the BCO has a copy of it here, but the city UCC specifically points out that an apprentice cannot, it says specifically electrical apprentice cannot work alone. I don't know what section it's in, but that was part of the reason why the licensing board came to that conclusion, because it was almost an impossibility, because everyone who testified, none of them were a journeyman level, and there was one master, and it's Mr. Harper. So if it specifically says in the UCC that no apprentice can work alone, I mean, that's it.
And I guess that's the basis of my question. Is that specifically stated? Not our understanding or anything else. Is it specifically stated in black and white that an apprentice must be directly supervised whenever he's doing electrical work?
Okay.
That's all I'm asking.
My answer will be very similar to them before. The city has adopted the National Electrical Code through the adoption of the ICC Electrical Code, which is part of the Uniform Construction Code, which is adopted on a regular basis through Pennsylvania.
Understood.
So my answer to your question, based on that, would be yes.
Okay, so the National Electric Code says that specifically.
Again,
The UCC in the section that was quoted by the letter that has been disregarded, but the section that's quoted in the letter comes from the section of the UCC on the licensing. That's my understanding of where that section's from. So if that in fact is, I don't have a copy here. I don't think anybody on the board has a copy of the UCC with us, but they do, and I don't know if they looked it up to see if it still says the same thing as it did in 2021. I couldn't hear you.
Here comes Kelly with it now.
Okay.
It'd be, according to what the chair said, it would be section 15.
Yeah.
Mr. Solicitor, is there anything else for me?
I don't believe there's any other questions, no.
Thank you.
So I think we're just waiting we'll give some time to the building code office. I can't hear. Yeah. See, I don't think that's correct.
I found it in the city's ordinance, if I can read it out.
Yeah, I think, and we may have found it at the same time. Is it under section 333.02,
Yeah, 02E.
little a? Yeah,
Says an apprentice shall be supervised by a master or journeyman. A master or journeyman may not supervise more than one apprentice on a commercial project. A master or journeyman may not supervise more than 3 apprentices on a residential project. That is directly out of the city ordinance.
Do we have enough information to proceed or not? If we do, Chair calls for a motion from the board.
A motion to deny the appeal?
Is there a second? I'll second. We have a motion to deny and a second.
Before a vote, I just want to make it very clear that Mr. Sandell and Mr. Armstrong are both on the trade licensing board. So we had prior conversations with them because they had prior knowledge of this case. I wanted them present for purposes of quorum, but I don't believe they should be able to vote.
Right.
Just
They
as,
would
so they,
be
so just I want it noted for the record that they would abstain from voting. We would. They would not vote yea or nay, just abstain. Okay? And still would be a majority vote on whatever motion is passed by the board.
Okay? All in favor signify by saying aye. All in favor of the motion to deny signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? The motion carries, so the appeal is denied. Thank you all very much, and that concludes our hearing for today.
So that would reflect, if you could just stay on just for a second there, just for the court. So that would reflect a 5-0 vote to deny, and then we have 2 abstentions. Okay, thank you.